Morgan Freeman's Night to Remember. The dim lights of a bustling studio in downtown Chicago flicker to life. It's the set of Midnight Glow, a late-night talk show broadcast from the heart of the Windy City's NBC Tower. The crowd's buzzing, restless in their seats, because tonight's no ordinary night. Morgan Freeman, yes, that Morgan Freeman, is stepping onto the stage, not as a Hollywood icon, but as a man ready to bare his soul. Across from him, the sharp-tongued host, Rachel Harper, known for tearing into guests with her biting wit. But tonight, something's different. Shin, because Morgan's not just a guest, he's a force. Buckle up, because this story's going to hit you right in the heart. Backstage, Rachel's checking herself in the mirror. Her blonde hair is flawless, her smirk razor sharp. "Tonight, I'm taking Morgan Freeman down a peg," she mutters. To her, Morgan's a relic, a guy stuck in the past with his old-school wisdom and quirky takes, like his thoughts on cryptocurrency or his grandpa advice for kids today. Easy target, right? Her producer, Emily, pops in, looking uneasy. "Rachel, you sure about this? It's Morgan Freeman. The guy's got presents." Rachel laughs it off. "Presents? Emily, I eat presents for breakfast." But deep down, there's a tiny knot in her stomach. Those soulful eyes, that voice like warm gravel. Morgan's not like her usual prey. Here's where the trouble starts. Rachel's got a plan to roast Morgan on live TV. She wants to make him look outdated, poke holes in his wise old man shtick, and get the crowd howling. But Morgan, he's no pushover. He's walked through fire, growing up in the segregated South, clawing his way to Hollywood's peak, facing down doubts and doors slammed in his face. What Rachel doesn't know is that Morgan's not just a star, he's a sage. And tonight, he's not here to play her game. He's here to steal the show and touch every heart in the room. The studio lights flare, the crowd roars. Rachel struts out, all confidence and sly grins. "Tonight, we've got the one and only Morgan Freeman," she says, her voice dripping with mischief. "The man whose voice could narrate your dreams. But can he keep up with this crowd?" The audience laughs, eating it up. Rachel's in her element, ready to pounce. Then Morgan walks out. Dark suit, easy smile, moving like he owns the place. The crowd loses it, cheers, whistles, the works. But there's something in Morgan's eyes, a quiet strength. He's ready for Rachel's jabs, but he's playing a different game. "So Morgan," Rachel starts, leaning forward with a smirk. "This world's a mess, right? You gonna fix it with your old-timey wisdom?" The crowd snickers. Morgan just leans back, calm as a summer lake. That voice, deep, steady, cuts through the noise. "Rachel, the world's always been a mess, but you don't fix it by shouting. You fix it by listening." The room goes quiet for a split second. Rachel wasn't expecting that. She recovers fast, but Morgan's not done. "I grew up in Mississippi, Rachel, back when dreams were small and the world was hard. But I learned something. If you listen with your heart, you find your way." That's just the start. Morgan's words shift the air in the studio. Rachel's losing her grip, and the crowd's not laughing anymore. They're thinking. Morgan starts telling a story, his voice pulling everyone in. It's about a night when he was a kid, sitting on his grandma's porch in Memphis, staring at the stars. "My grandma used to say, 'Morgan, life's full of noise, but the truth, it's quiet.'" Rachel's smirk fades. This isn't her show anymore. Morgan's not just talking. He's guiding. He's turning a glitzy talk show into something real, something raw. What would you do if someone's words hit you like that? Ever had a moment where you felt the truth in your bones? Drop it in the comments. I want to hear your story. The tide turns. The Chicago studio's buzzing, but it's not the usual talk show hype. The crowd's hanging on every word Morgan Freeman says, and Rachel Harper's starting to sweat. Her plan to roast the Hollywood legend is crumbling fast. Morgan's not just dodging her jabs, he's turning them into something bigger, something that makes the room feel alive. His story about his grandma's porch in Memphis has everyone leaning forward, eyes wide, hearts open. Rachel's smirk is gone, replaced by a flicker of doubt. She's losing control, and she knows it. But Morgan, he's just getting started. Rachel grips her note cards, trying to claw back the spotlight. Okay, Morgan, she says, her voice sharper now. That's a sweet story, but let's get real. You talk about listening, but the world's screaming. Division, politics, chaos. Your old school advice can't keep up, can it? The crowd murmurs, some nodding, expecting Rachel to land a hit. Morgan tilts his head, his eyes locking onto hers like he's seeing right through her. Rachel, he says, that gravelly voice steady as a rock. The world's loud, sure, but noise ain't progress. You want to fix things? Start with the quiet moments. That's where the truth lives. The room goes still. A lady in the front row, gray hair tucked behind her ears, wipes her eyes. A guy in the back, maybe a retired vet, nods slowly like Morgan's speaking straight to his soul. Rachel's thrown. She's used to guests who squirm or snap back. But Morgan's calm. It's unnerving. She pushes harder. Come on, Morgan. You're a big believer in stuff like cryptocurrency, right? Isn't that just chasing trends? What's a guy like you doing messing with that? The crowd laughs, but it's nervous, not mocking. They're curious now, not just entertained. Morgan leans forward, his hands clasped, a faint smile playing on his lips. Rachel, it's not about the coins or the tech. It's about believing in something bigger than today. Back in Mississippi, I saw folks with nothing but hope. They bet on tomorrow, even when it hurt. That's what drives me, not trends, dreams. The crowd's quiet again, but it's a heavy kind of quiet, the kind that makes your chest tight. Rachel's note cards slip a little in her hands. She's not used to this, someone turning her zingers into life lessons. Then Morgan does something nobody expects. He looks out at the crowd, his eyes soft but piercing. Let me tell you about a kid I knew, he says. Grew up in a shack, no running water, no future anybody could see. Folks told him he'd never be nothing. But he had a teacher, Miss Evelyn, who saw something in him. She gave him a book, old, tattered, but full of stories. And she said, boy, you read this and you'll find your voice. Morgan pauses, his voice catching just a touch. That kid was me. The studio's dead silent now. Rachel's frozen, her usual quick comebacks nowhere to be found. The crowd's not just listening, they're feeling. A woman in the middle row clutches her husband's hand, tears slipping down her cheek. Morgan's not just telling a story, he's pulling them into his world, making them see the dirt roads of Mississippi, the weight of a kid's dreams. That book, he continues, it wasn't just words, it was a door. And I walked through it even when the world said I couldn't. Rachel tries to jump in, her voice a little shaky. That's inspiring, Morgan, but he cuts her off, not with words, but with a look, gentle but firm. Rachel, we all got doors. Question is, you gonna walk through yours or let the noise hold you back? The crowd erupts, not wild cheers, but a deep, heartfelt applause. It's the kind that says they're not just clapping for Morgan, they're clapping for themselves, for every time they faced a door and kept going. What's a door you've walked through in your life? A moment when you pushed past the noise and found your truth? Share it in the comments. I'm dying to know what keeps you going. Hey, if this story's hitting home, hit that subscribe button. Don't miss what's coming next. The heart of the storm, the air in the Chicago studio feels thick, like the calm before a thunderstorm. Morgan Freeman's words have turned Midnight Glow into something more than a talk show. It's a mirror reflecting every struggle, every hope in the room. Rachel Harper's gripping her note cards so tight they're creasing, her usual confidence cracking like thin ice. The crowd's not hers anymore. They're Morgan's. His story about that tattered book, about Miss Evelyn and the kid from Mississippi, has them spellbound. Tears glisten in the eyes of a gray-haired woman in the front row. A man in a faded Cubs cap nods, like he's remembering his own battles. Rachel's got to do something, or this night's slipping away for good. She leans forward, forcing a smile that doesn't quite reach her eyes. Morgan, that's a powerful story, she says, her voice tight. But let's talk about now. You've got this aura, sure, but some say you're out of touch, clinging to old ideas in a world that's moved on. Don't you ever think it's time to step aside? The crowd gasps, a few boos ripple through. Rachel's playing dirty, trying to paint Morgan as a has-been. But Morgan, he doesn't flinch. He just sits there, eyes steady like a lighthouse in a storm. Rachel, he says, his voice low and warm, it ain't about old or new. It's about what's true. I've seen the world change, seen it break hearts and build dreams. But one thing stays the same. You gotta stand for something or you'll fall for anything. The crowd murmurs, a wave of agreement washing over them. Rachel's smile falters. She's not used to this. Someone who doesn't just answer, but teaches. She pushes back, desperate to regain control. But Morgan, your ideas, like betting on crypto or preaching hard work, they feel rigid. Don't you worry you're alienating folks who want progress? Morgan leans back, a faint chuckle escaping his lips. Progress? Rachel, progress without roots is just wandering. I learned that the hard way. He pauses, his eyes sweeping the crowd, pulling them in. When I was a young man breaking into Hollywood, I got offered a role. Big money, big spotlight. But it meant playing a stereotype, a caricature. I wanted the cash, needed it bad, but something in me said, Morgan, if you take this, you're selling your soul. The crowd's dead quiet, hanging on every word. I said no, walked away. And let me tell you, that night I went home to a cold apartment, no food in the fridge, wondering if I'd made the biggest mistake of my life. Rachel's eyes widen. She didn't see this coming. The crowd's on the edge of their seats, some leaning forward, others clutching hands. Morgan's voice softens, but it's heavy with truth. But then, months later, a different role came. A small one, but real. It was my start. If I'd taken that first deal, I wouldn't be here. Not as the man I am. Sometimes, Rachel, you gotta lose to win. A tear rolls down the cheek of an older man in the back, his face weathered like he's lived that choice. The woman in the front row sobbing quietly, her hands trembling. Rachel tries to cut in, her voice shaky. That's brave, Morgan, but he raises a hand, gentle but firm, stopping her cold. It's not about being brave, he says, it's about being you. Every one of us faces that moment. Take the easy road or the right one. And it's the right one that makes you whole. The crowd erupts, not in wild cheers, but in a deep, soulful applause that shakes the studio. It's the sound of people who fought their own battles, who've chosen the hard road and lived to tell it. Rachel's stunned, her note cards forgotten on the desk. Morgan's not just winning the crowd, he's changing them, changing her. The studio lights seem softer now, like they're cradling this moment. Morgan looks out at the audience, his eyes warm but fierce. You know what keeps me going? He asks, his voice a quiet thunder. It's knowing that every choice, every scar, every time you stand up again, it builds something. Something the world can't take away. What's a choice you've made that cost you something but made you you? A time you picked the hard road? Drop it in the comments. I want to hear your heart on this. If Morgan's words are hitting you like they're hitting me, smash that subscribe button. You don't want to miss where this goes. The silence that speaks to the Chicago studio's electric, but it's not the usual talk show buzz. It's something deeper, heavier, like the air itself is holding its breath. Morgan Freeman's words have turned Midnight Glow into a sanctuary where every heart in the room feels seen. Rachel Harper's floundering, her sharp wit dulled by Morgan's quiet power. The crowd's not laughing anymore. They're leaning in, some with tears in their eyes, others gripping the arms of their chairs. Morgan's story about turning down that soul-crushing Hollywood role has struck a chord, and the applause still echoes, warm and soul-deep. Rachel's got one last shot to take back her show, but deep down she knows she's up against something bigger than her. Rachel straightens up, forcing a smile that's more nervous than solemn. Morgan, you've got a way with words, she says, her voice wobbling just a bit. But let's talk about today. You're a legend, sure, but some folks say your ideas, your whole stand your ground thing, it's too stubborn. Don't you ever think you're holding on too tight to the past? The crowd shifts, a few murmurs ripple through. It's a bold move, painting Morgan as a man out of time. But Morgan just looks at her, his eyes soft but unyielding, like an oak tree standing through a storm. Rachel, he says, his voice a warm rumble. The past ain't something you hold on to. It's something you build on. I've seen too many folks tear down what's good, thinking they're starting fresh. But you don't grow a tree by ripping out its roots. The crowd's quiet, but it's the kind of quiet that feels alive, like they're all breathing together. A woman in the second row, her face lined with years of hard work, nods, her eyes glistening. Rachel's note cards are useless now, scattered on the desk like fallen leaves. She's out of her depth, and Morgan's just warming up. He leans forward, his hands clasped, his gaze sweeping the room. "Let me tell you something," he says, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "When I was a boy in Memphis, my daddy worked two jobs, factory by day, janitor by night. He'd come home so tired, his hands shook. But every Sunday, he'd sit me down and say, 'Morgan, life's going to hit you hard, but you don't break. You bend, and you keep going.'" Morgan's voice cracks, just a touch, and the crowd feels it like a punch to the chest. "My daddy didn't have much, but he gave me that, and I've carried it every day since." The studio's still as a church. A man in the back, his flannel shirt worn at the elbows, wipes his face with a shaky hand. A younger woman, maybe a nurse off a long shift, clutches her purse, tears streaming down. Rachel's frozen, her usual quick jabs nowhere to be found. Morgan's not just telling a story, he's peeling back his soul, showing the scars that made him. "That's what I mean, Rachel," he continues, his voice steady again. "It's not about being stubborn. It's about knowing who you are, what you're made of. You don't throw that away, no matter how loud the world gets." Rachel tries to pivot, her voice softer now, almost pleading. "But Morgan, doesn't it get heavy, carrying all that, standing so firm? Don't you ever want to just let go?" It's not a jab anymore. It's a real question, and the crowd leans in, hungry for his answer. Morgan smiles, a small, knowing smile that lights up his eyes. "Oh, it's heavy, Rachel. Lord knows it is. But you know what's heavier? Losing yourself. I've seen folks do it, trade their truth for applause, for money, for an easy ride. And you know what they tell me years later? They say, 'Morgan, I don't even know who I am anymore.'" The crowd's breathless, caught in the weight of his words. A woman in the front row, her silver hair catching the stage lights, lets out a soft sob. The man next to her puts an arm around her, his own eyes red. Morgan looks out at them, his voice gentle but firm. "You carry the weight because it's yours, because it's what makes you you. And when you stand tall, you give others the courage to do the same." The applause starts slow, then builds, a rolling wave of gratitude, not just for Morgan, but for every time they have carried their own weight and kept going. Have you ever carried a weight that felt too heavy, but you held on because it was yours? What kept you standing? Share it in the comments. I want to feel your strength. If this story's moving you, hit that subscribe button. You won't believe what's coming next. Light in the dark, the Chicago studio hums, Morgan Freeman's words making midnight glow a sanctuary. Rachel Harper's fading, her wit no match for Morgan's calm. The crowd's teary, gripped by his tale of his father's sacrifice. Rachel's voice shakes. "Morgan, how do you keep going when it's too much?" Morgan's eyes glow. "Rachel, my mama, a Memphis maid, said, 'You're loved.' That's the light." His voice softens. "In LA, broke. A fan's letter. Your voice saved me. Saved me." Tears fall. A man in leather blinks hard. Rachel's eyes glisten. "How do you find it alone?" Morgan smiles. "Listen, love's quiet." Applause swells, soulful. Morgan's a beacon. Ever found your light? Share in the comments. Subscribe for more. The quiet truth. The Chicago studio's alive, Morgan Freeman's words turning midnight glow into a revival. Rachel's soft, her jabs gone. The crowd cries, moved by his fans' letter. Rachel asks, raw, "Morgan, how do you find your way when lost?" Morgan's gaze holds them. "In Atlanta, at rock bottom, I listened. My heart said, 'Keep going.'" A woman sobs, "Your truth's quiet, Rachel." He looks out. "In Chicago, a kid said, 'Your voice gave me hope.' He's a teacher now." Applause rises, deep. Rachel's speechless. Morgan's a guide. When did you find your way? Comment below. Subscribe for what's next. The truth that lasts. The Chicago studio glows, Morgan Freeman's words making midnight glow sacred. Rachel's changed, eyes wet. The crowd's in awe, tears falling from his tale of finding his way. Rachel whispers, Morgan, what matters most? Morgan's voice hums, be true, Rachel. My mama saw a Memphis kid's light. He leans in. A Chicago nurse said, your voice saved me. Your truth ripples. A man in the flannel suits. Be you. Rachel cries, you changed us. Applause roars. His words go viral. Morgan's light shines. What's your truth? Comment below. Subscribe for more stories.